Canada's dairy system has long been a thorny issue in global trade. Countries like France and New Zealand have repeatedly complained that Canada limits access for their cheeses and butter, shielding its domestic market. Now, a far bigger problem is unfolding. In the American Midwest, elevators in the Northwest Corn Belt aren't even looking at buying soybeans this fall. Why? Because they don't know if China will be buying them, and storage space is already tightening. Current basis levels are swinging wildly, from -$1.35 to -$1.55. For context, during the peak of the last US-China trade war, some regions only fell to -$2. That shows just how severe the current disruption could become. Picture this: dozens of semi-trucks loaded with American corn and soybeans sitting motionless at the US-Canada border. What used to be a steady flow of farm goods has suddenly screeched to a halt. Overnight, a strict new Canadian import law has slammed the brakes on one of America's largest agricultural markets. Canada is the top export destination for most US states. So when Ottawa tightens the screws, the shockwaves ripple across the Midwest. Farmers and exporters are stunned as their most reliable northern buyer suddenly shuts its doors. What changed? Under a new set of regulations, framed as food safety measures, every US shipment of grain, meat, or dairy bound for Canada now faces intense scrutiny. Border inspections are more rigorous. Quarantine procedures and chemical testing have become mandatory. New traceability rules demand end-to-end documentation, proving where every crop was planted, harvested, processed, and shipped. On paper, this is about consumer safety. In practice, it has brought cross-border trade to a near standstill. Shipments that once cleared in hours are now delayed for days, or rejected outright over minor paperwork issues. Canadian officials insist the rules are simply to protect families. But many trade analysts see it differently, as a calculated act of retaliation. The targeted nature of the law echoes the playbook of the US-China trade war in 2018, when Beijing deliberately hit Midwestern soybeans to pressure Washington. Already, the fallout is visible across America's Farm Belt. Take Iowa. Known as one of the nation's agricultural powerhouses, Iowa exports billions of dollars worth of corn, soybeans, and pork to Canada each year. That pipeline has now collapsed. Exports are down more than 40% in just a month. Truckloads are being turned back, grain elevators are overflowing, and local prices have plunged. Farmers are selling below cost just to clear storage and raise cash. Processing plants, feed mills, and trucking companies are cutting shifts or shutting down. Rural communities are seeing job losses, shrinking businesses, and the first signs of recession. Nebraska is reeling too. As a top producer of beef, dairy, corn, and wheat, it has been hammered on both fronts, livestock and crops. Beef exports are being rejected for failing Canada's new traceability rules. Dairy shipments spoil as they sit waiting for inspections. Train cars of corn and wheat are idling at the border. Ranchers are culling herds. Slaughterhouses are slowing down. Grain elevators are packed. And rural banks are tightening credit as they worry about loan defaults. Wisconsin, America's dairyland, is facing one of its toughest crises in decades. Canada has long been the biggest buyer of Wisconsin's cheese, milk powder, and specialty dairy products. Now, that market has nearly vanished. Milk prices have collapsed. Family farms are closing. Cheese factories are cutting shifts and laying off workers. Small towns built on dairy are seeing diners, grocery stores, and farm supply shops go quiet. Minnesota, another grain belt state, is stuck in gridlock. Wheat, corn, and soybean shipments are piling up. Freight trains and trucks wait for days at the border, caught in endless paperwork delays. Some Canadian buyers are cancelling contracts outright, calling Minnesota exporters unreliable. Grain prices are falling, farmers are renting emergency storage, and rural communities are bracing for long-term damage. And then there's North Dakota, perhaps the hardest hit of all. With nearly 80% of its exports going to Canada, this state's economy is deeply tied to cross-border trade. Now, that lifeline is strangled. Trucks and rail cars are sitting idle, shipments are being rejected, and grain prices have fallen by as much as 20%. Farmers are stuck with mountains of unsold crops. Some co-ops have stopped buying altogether. Border towns that once thrived on truck traffic are now eerily quiet, their restaurants and shops empty. Across all these states, the message is the same: America's Farm Belt is under siege. If this impasse drags on, analysts warn it could spiral into a crisis not seen in decades. Farmers may cut back on planting. Processing plants may close. Entire communities could slide into recession. And the United States could lose hard-won agricultural market share in North America for years to come. Washington is under pressure to act. Farm groups are demanding negotiations to lift Canada's barriers and calling for emergency relief programs to keep families afloat. But unless a breakthrough comes soon, the pain will deepen, spreading far beyond the farm gate and into the heart of rural America. Canada says it's about food safety, but to many farmers, it feels like politics. And right now, it's their livelihoods on the line. This is True Estate Report. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.